Mine is not emulating properly. Or I'd have to uncable from, I'd have to run the cable back from here. No, not yet. My question is there another HDMI cable that Sean could plug into for us to use the monitors? And that's the one that I'm plugged into, right? All right. That's fine. George, you can roll the cameras. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the Town of Monroe June 12th, 2024 Planning Board meeting. Before we do anything else, just like to ask everyone to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag. Also, fire exits are located both behind us in the room, out either door on either side of the dais. That'll take you out the front door. Out here will take you out to the patio and down. Noreen, can I get a roll call for attendance?
Branson is out this evening. Jeff Manson,
Here.
the acting chair this evening. Pat Shea,
Here.
Dylan Penn. Lou Rivera is out, and Robert Garstak is out. Thank you.
Okay, the first application we'll be reviewing tonight is for Alona Bito for an accessory apartment. If I can ask the applicant to come forward.
Check, check. Okay, I got one here.
On the top of the mic.
Check, check.
Just pull that towards you. You can introduce yourself for the record and also bring us up to speed with where we're at with this application, please.
Sure. Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Kutchik.
Hold on one moment. No. Pull that switch towards you. No.
George, can you hear him?
Yes, it's,
Yeah.
I don't think it's working.
Neither are working, George.
Try the one on the dais. There's one by Jeff's.
George, it's not capturing, it's not picking up any of them. They're all on. They're all full battery. Sure. George?
Seems good. How was that? Yeah. we're on.
Much better.
You got it, George. Okay, I'm sorry. If you'll start with your introduction again, please.
Yeah, so I'm Robert Kutchik, and I'm the designer for Ilona. And it's been quite a journey so far. We started with the planning board seeking a permit for a 335 square foot accessory apartment, which falls short of the 450 minimum requirement. So at that point, the planning board turned it over to the zoning, and a few weeks ago we had that final meeting, and the zoning allowance was granted at that meeting. And there were some folks from Rye Hill Road, the neighbors, who came and were concerned about the accessory apartment. And I think basically their concern was depreciation, devaluation due to rentals. So I was just trying to emphasize that Ilona and her family live there, and we're looking at an accessory apartment, but my job is to take care of the whole property. And they're really interested in bringing the house back and taking care of the grounds. And so while this has been in process, I've been there in that I'm a builder as well. So I've been opening up the culverts, I took the satellite off the roof, I've scraped their floors, caulked, all the sills, and just done everything I can. So from my point of view, their ownership of the house is kind of a best case scenario for the neighborhood as well. You have people coming in who really want to take care of it and be there and be good neighbors, as opposed to, I don't know how many people might have, driven by looking for houses and properties who would take one look at 122 Ludlam and say, that's definitely not it. So on the contrary, Ilona sees it and says, that's it, just like that. They care for every square inch of that, including the swamp. The wild part of it is very much of, why they bought it, and the mama bear and the baby bear and the eagles and all of that. So they really want to, define that line between what's wild and what will be cultivated so that it kind of is in keeping with the character of the neighborhood. And I think that part of it went well. So we're back here, looking at where we left off, I believe, with the planning board. And I just actually received the engineers and lawyers' comments August 29th. So too late to submit materials for the meeting. So I'd never seen them, if there were further requirements or. So from the two lists that I received, what I've done is incorporate that into a cover sheet showing how it, will be, taken care of and complied with. So that's why I brought that cover sheet there. And it just basically goes through all of the points of the bulk requirements, which I make a table of those and show where it stands. And we're meeting all of the bulk requirements with the exception of the square footage, which has been granted. And I can go through the points if that's helpful for you. Point by point, there's 6 or 7 of them. So that would be up to you. How much detail you want me to go into about that, or what your questions are at this point.
So we haven't actually received the text of the variance, I assume.
No, I have asked for it.
Okay. If I may, from your memory of the meeting, was it variance with conditions, or do you recall if there were no conditions?
I don't believe there were conditions.
Excuse me, there was one,
Thank you.
kind of a proviso that it's understood that this is not a permit to rent. It's just the area allowance. That-
Right, yeah.
You mean as a short-term rental?
Or any kind of rental. I mean, it's not,
Okay.
it wasn't
Right.
part of, the zoning board to grant such a permit. And I
Perhaps
certainly,
it was that they still had to come here for the accessory apartment permit.
yes. Yeah, that's understood.
Right? My understanding
Any
is
short-term rental, that would be a separate.
short-term rental is a
Exactly.
separate.
So anything this board does is not going to be approving a short-term rental either. That's a separate process as well.
And as I understand, the homeowner is considered a number of applications for this, possibly a guest room for her parents or for her in-laws and other family members, or they may choose to use it as a long-term rental, kind
Yeah, I
of
don't
thing.
know their mind on that. It's basically, they moved here from the city, and there, like, two things come up. The isolation from where you were. So to have guests, that can stay a longer time, which you can never do in the city, is very, important for them. And then also the rental, because they're looking at it, they're first-time homeowners. So they buy the home, and they don't know anything about, town ordinances and that. And it was always essential for them to have this extra space as a means also for keeping the property, for rentals and income like that, which, in the same section of the codes, it allows that for them to rent the space. So that's the way they look at it, and certainly for their family too, to come and stay.
Right, so I mean, it seems like at this point, it's for us to work on perfecting this application, so that when we have the variance text and have gone through that, then we can look towards whether we're going to approve or deny this application. So, Sean, would you please go over your comments?
Sure. So I really don't have any new comments. It's kind of just reiteration of what I've previously provided. So I have a number of items that should be added as notes to the plan to meet the permit requirements for the accessory apartment straight from the code. The other 3 items that the applicant should look into to confirm is, number 1, that there's sufficient parking. There's 4 parking spots required, 2 spots for each, the single-family side and the accessory apartment side. And the on-site well and septic. Confirm that there's adequate, the well is adequate to supply water to the new unit, as well as the septic is large enough to serve the dwelling.
Right, so these are some of the things that we discussed back in June.
Right.
But we have to move forward on those now that the variance
Now
has
that the
been
variance-
granted, and before we can complete our work. Ashley?
I think all of my comments are incorporated into Sean's as well, but I'll just hit them quickly, and this is all from the code, section 5744A. The floor plan needs to be sealed by a registered architect or PE. There needs to be a CO or adequate proof that the single-family home has been in existence for at least 10 years. Sean noted they have to show the parking, 2 spaces per unit, and there needs to be that certification from a licensed engineer that there's adequate water and sewage disposal facilities. And then one more item is there needs to be an owner's affidavit. So I believe the applicant had signed the old form. So I did make sure Noreen has the updated form that she'll be able
Yeah.
to send, and just have the owner sign that and submit that. As far as seeker goes, you'd previously classified this as a type 2 action, so no environmental review is required, and it does not require referral to the county or a public hearing. So I think it would make sense for the applicant to, make a submission addressing these things, and I could have a resolution ready for the next time they appear.
Yeah, it's point for point what I've done with the cover sheet with all of those points.
I don't think you've given the wastewater and water certification from an engineer, and I
Only a
haven't
few
seen
times.
the plans stamped. Or parking isn't,
Okay, the inspection installation licensed by a licensed septic person was submitted.
your original submission, I think you had given the original installation information,
Yes.
but there needs to be a certification that there's adequate, since you're increasing now the usage of water and sewage, there needs to be a certification saying that that system's capable of handling the increased in usage.
Yeah, I can sure do that. The number of bedrooms has not changed. I mean, it was already a bedroom.
So that likely will be easy to obtain that then.
Excuse me?
It should be easy then to obtain that if there's no.
Yeah, I mean,
Right, so you'll just need a letter to that effect, signed and sealed by either an architect or an engineer. It has to be an engineer. I'm sorry, code requires an engineer, not an architect. An architect cannot sign it.
okay. And then with zoning, I did do a full site plan showing the parking area and the square footage. And the code on that is 18 feet by 8.5 feet per parking space.
By 9.
Okay, 18 by 9. And it's very ample for that. And then plus there's a double garage. If you could look at,
Was this something new that was submitted?
excuse me?
Was this something new? Because we didn't see any new plans since your original submission.
Yeah, it went to zoning,
So it needs to get submitted to this board.
okay,
So that might be where if you had made these changes on that submission, it needs to go to the planning board.
okay,
So I could just forward what was sent to me the last time from him.
yeah,
I'd suggest in your next submission, if there's any changes that need to be addressed from our comments, resubmit the plans in their entirety to address all the comments.
okay. Yeah, certainly will do. So, I mean, the CO, the accessory apartment is going to take largely the same space as an addition from 2000 on the house. And there is a C of O for that addition. The house was built in 1934, and as of 1938, certificate of occupancies were required. So it predates that, and we've gone to the former owner, and he doesn't have a C of O for that, only the new addition.
So then it might, so if you could submit that CO that you do have for the addition, and
Yeah.
then I believe you previously submitted the property tax assessment card, which would indicate that it's been there for.
When was that addition completed?
The addition was 2000, and we have the C of O for that. I got
Okay.
that from the building department.
I think that would be enough.
I mean, I'd be. Okay. All right, questions or comments? Dylan?
None for me, thank you.
Pat?
Nothing.
My biggest question when I was re-reviewing for this meeting, when I reviewed the minutes from our last meeting, realized I've already asked the question, so I don't need to ask that question. So I really think to just advance forward, we need our consultant's comments addressed and the updated plan submitted to us, and we can start to work towards a resolution. Remind me, Ashley, are there any, from the requirements of what has to be fulfilled legally to have the accessory apartment, anything that we had an issue with there? I didn't think so, but just want to double check.
Just the items that need to be, I don't believe.
But beyond that and the variance, it meets all the general qualifications. Okay. Mr. Kosick, do you have any further questions for us?
I think in the cover sheet I've covered, what you've required. The only outstanding one is in that I design build, I put crews together and get people as I need be. And with this one, I did the drawings as I often do. I've been building since for 35 years. So this the floor plans needing to be signed and sealed. I can get one of my guys to do that if it's necessary.
And it is, it's necessary under the code, and it's not something that this board can waive.
It's not something what?
It's not something that the board can waive, so it is something that's required.
Okay, then I'll just do it, whatever's required. But the reference from the same section that was given as A to B, requiring a registered architect to have drawn the plans, is strictly a zoning and mapping thing. That does not say that the plans have to be stamped. So that kind of threw me off there a little bit.
I think it might have been perhaps that this site was just an error. It might have been the next section.
In the accessory apartment section, there is stated no requirement for signed and sealed plans. And typically when I build, it's 1,500 square feet and less that don't have to be stamped. So I'm also thinking of the owners. I mean, they've been taken through so many things by now. We're just trying to build here.
Could check that, and I'll let Noreen know about that requirement.
I'd
Just need to do
appreciate that.
some research into that.
Yeah, because that, I'll submit the plans. I mean, they're already drawn, so I can do that like tomorrow or whatever. But if I need to
But yeah,
amend-
if you wait to submit, we'll let Noreen know whether that's required or not, and then go from
Okay.
there. But just make sure the plans do address the other comments and that you have the other certification from the engineer that's required.
Okay, will do.
So submission date for the next meeting would be September 26th by noon to be on the October meetings. not in the office tomorrow, but
Okay,
I'll talk to Alona on the beginning of the week to get her the right affidavit that I sent the wrong.
yeah. And just a note, I wasn't aware of these lists until after the deadline to get on the agenda. Otherwise, I would have had everything here.
Okay, we'll be looking forward to your next submission.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Next application we'll be looking at is Target.
Hello, my name's Casey Lieberman. I'm a civil engineer at Kimley Horn, and I'm here on behalf of Target. This submission is for facade improvements at the existing store, in addition to new proposed signage. Do you want me to start explaining it, or? Okay.
Please.
I'll go through what's proposed. So for starters, on all sides of the building, there's gonna be new paint coats on it. It's gonna match the current aesthetic of the store. The existing bullseye is going to be replaced with a new bullseye, just a plain white 13-inch bullseye. Currently, there's an existing 13-inch red bullseye with Target letters beneath it, so there'll be no letters on this one. The existing CVS sign is being relocated, and that is because there's being a drive-up wall sign proposed. So the drive-up wall sign is going to be directly across from where the existing drive-up parking spaces are. So it's really meant to be directional, so then when a customer pulls into the parking lot, they know exactly where to drive to, where the spaces are. Helps with the vehicular flow. And then lastly, there is an order pickup sign being proposed right above the entrance. Again, it's directional. If you're doing order pickup, which is a different program than drive up, you're actually going into the store to get your order. But with drive up, the employees are bringing it out of the store to your car. And then lastly, in terms of other facade improvements, there's going to be red ephes proposed behind that white bullseye. And this is being done nationwide just to match the aesthetic of all the stores and the coloring. But yeah, that's it. Do you have any questions?
Sean, when you're ready, if we can have your comments.
Home Depot after.
Sorry, we were
problem.
just talking about GML. I think my comments are not correct about not needing GML referral, but I'll get to that. So I didn't have a lot. I did evaluate the code for the maximum permitted signage requirement. So the applicant, or all buildings are allowed 2 feet per foot of width of facade. This is 400, I think, around 450 feet long, 457 feet long, and they're well below the maximum allowable. They are relocating one sign, the CVS pharmacy sign, and I believe the applicant said the drive-up sign is directional right to the existing spots that are on the site
Yes.
for pickup. You're not looking to expand the existing spots that are used for drive-up?
Not right now. Target probably has plans to soon,
Okay.
knowing them, but not
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
This is
So there's
truly
no
just
site
facade.
plan changes at
No,
all? It's
this
just
is strictly
architectural?
architectural.
So I just had one question on this sheet.
Yep.
So was this drive-up, is that
It's not on the
misplaced?
side.
right?
I get that all the time from towns. It's actually, that's just a representation of what it would look like on the building. It's not store specific.
So it's, okay, so it's just to demonstrate
Yeah.
the dimensions?
Yeah.
Okay,
Strictly
that's
that.
not going to be located on that side? Okay.
Yeah, that gets confused all the time.
Yeah.
It's something I should probably tell them at this point,
Yeah.
but
Okay, and so, as I was saying earlier, my apologies, it looks like it will have to be referred to the county for county planning for the GML 239. And that's about it. Ashley?
Ashley?
For purposes of seeker, it would be a type 2 action. It does require referral to GML. There's an exemption for site plans for signage that meets the code, but there's no exemption for pure architectural review for these facade changes that are, so unfortunately, some things slipped through that exemption agreement. A few more items. So the entity disclosure, that needs to be signed by a representative of the owner corporation as opposed to the engineer, and you also need an owner's endorsement from the corporation allowing the engineer to make the application on their behalf. I think I had read somewhere that it sounded like you were painting to match the existing colors, but it looks like it's changing to more gray. Is that correct? I think it's currently tan.
let's see. I mean, you could be right, but I think overall their goal is just to make the whole thing look presentable and match all together. I'm not too sure, to be honest, what the existing sign of the building is. It is tan, but so yes, they are
Okay.
repainting, but yeah, it'll be another color. You're right.
It's a complete refresh of the entire
Yeah, it's just a
exterior.
total. Yeah, and I was there today. I stopped here, so I was like, I'm glad they chose this store to refresh. Honestly.
But these are the colors that they would be looking to change to.
Yep.
If you could just review if there's, I know it was in your narrative, but if there's anything on the plan that indicates it's being painted to match the existing colors, if you could just remove that,
Okay, I don't
because
think there is anywhere.
just to make
That
clear
was just
that it's,
me, but yeah, got
okay.
it.
That's it. Oh, so the signs are going to be internally illuminated, so there is that section of the sign regulations you have to comply with, that they are non-glaring lights. And there is no requirement for a public hearing for this application, but it does require GML, so you'll have to refer it and then can't take action until you get a response or 30 days passes.
Okay, I went with these plans both to our existing target here in Monroe, just to get a live comparison to what was being proposed. And I also had an opportunity, the target in Spring Valley is using this color set and signage. So I've seen what the change is going to look like. My first question is, in all the documentation, like install red EIFs paneling. What is EIFs?
EFIS, I don't actually know what it
okay.
stands for off the top of my head, but it's an insulated paneling on the building. It's a matte look, and it just is clean looking. They've been doing it at all their stores. That's what they have at Spring Valley.
Yeah, and I observed that. I mean, I have no questions. I think this is fairly straightforward and in keeping with what the rest of the plaza looks like. So I don't have necessarily an issue. I know we have to run it past the county.
I concur.
Okay. Dylan? Same? So can we get that sent out for GML review when you're back in on Monday? And we'll start the clock on that. And so it's able to at our meeting next month?
Out on the 16th, our October meetings are the 10th and 15th. I will call Megan and see if she can get it to me at least by if not the 10th, if I can have it by the 15th.
Thank you.
Haven't been getting.
Because of these. Okay, any questions for us at this point?
I guess it was really just on the review timeline. They were planning to construct in October, right before winter, otherwise they can't. So, the next meeting, will I have to be, is it required to be in person for it? Okay. All right.
Appropriate for the board to make a motion to classify this as a type 2 action under seeker?
I'll make that motion.
So
Madam,
moved. Second.
thank you. Noreen?
Jeff Manson,
Aye.
Pat Shea,
Aye.
Dylan Penn.
Aye.
Thank
Okay.
you.
So that's where we're at.
Just one quick question. Are we allowed to apply for sign permits concurrently while we're waiting for the planning review to be completed?
Question for the building inspector.
Okay.
You're also representing Home Depot.
Yes.
All right. So our next application that we're looking at is Home Depot.
Yeah.
We almost both showed up here. It's my colleague, we are 2 desks apart, and I was like, if I'm on the Thursday agenda, will you go on Tuesday for me? I'm gonna be away. And he was like, I'm on the Thursday agenda. I wish we both showed up. It would've been very funny. New York City.
Okay, so if you want to bring us up to date on where we're at with Home Depot.
Yes. So, as mentioned previously, Case Lieberman from Kimley Horn on here behalf of Home Depot. So previously, we were here for outdoor storage at the existing Home Depot, and the last time there were comments that we received that we addressed and sent back out, and I'm not sure if you got the chance to review them or if you want to walk through them together. Our responses? Yeah?
Yeah,
Maybe see if Sean
yeah, I think
outstanding based on.
that's
Okay.
right. That way we can address everything. Sean?
The genesis of this application is to alleviate some notice of violations from the building inspector. Given the width of the fire lane in front of the building and in the rear, apparently, I did talk to Ben, he said, especially in the back, there's not even room enough to get a car through with all the goods that are stored in the back, let alone a fire truck. So that's what this application is trying to drive at, is have reserved areas for storage of goods versus, and reserving space in order to meet the fire code. So I did ask Ben to review the application, and he did agree that he's okay with everything as proposed, the locations as well as what's being left for the fire lane. I do that. So, however, the number of parking spaces is being reduced, and the existing number of spaces does not meet code. So I believe, unless there's an existing variance that allows them to go to the reduced number of spaces, the application will actually have to be referred to the ZBA. Some other technical items, the applicant is looking to mill and ADA parking spots in order to achieve the minimum required. The applicant has shown limits of where they'll mill and repave. However, there's no grades to confirm that what they will replace will meet the minimum required grades. So I asked that those grades be added, and then with that, I asked that the applicant confirm that the accessible route is met, or I should say, the accessible route to the building meets ADA between the parking spots and the building. So symbol F on the site plan identifies display of tractors, mowers, and seasonal equipment. And I said that that potentially could impact the fire lane. However, the building inspector did not take any exception to that location, and I specifically pointed that out to him, so that comment number 6 is a moot point. And same as 7. I had a question on whether or not it conflicted with the fire access. So in order to maybe potentially help the applicant, I asked if there was an existing cross easement or cross parking easement agreement between Home Depot and the others, in the plaza. And that could potentially help you with your parking calc. So, I'd suggest you look there. And then number 9 is the same thing as 6 and 7, that Ben didn't take any exception to the location of the storage and display areas, except that it looks like there's going to be fencing around the corrals. Is that correct, in the rear? So you'll need a fencing detail.
That I have to confirm, but
Right.
if so,
Yeah.
will do.
Ashley?
So it does require referral to Orange County Planning Department under GML. It would be an unlisted action under seeker. I do agree with Sean that a variance is needed for the parking. So normally you would do a coordinated review, but if you wanted under these circumstances to do uncoordinated, that way the applicant can proceed before the ZBA without having to wait for this board to complete seeker. The applicant had previously requested a parking reduction pursuant to the code, but that's only able to be granted for 25%, and reducing from the required 918 spaces to 577 would be a 37.1% waiver. So the planning board doesn't have authority to waive that. So I think as far as tonight goes, you could ask Noreen to refer the application to the county under GML, and then you could classify the application as unlisted under seeker, and if you agree with doing an uncoordinated review. Could also refer the applicant to the ZBA for a variance for the parking.
You refer the applicant to the ZBA, and they're able to demonstrate that there is a cross easement on parking that would eliminate that necessity for the variance.
I'm not sure if it would eliminate necessity or if it would be a consideration that the ZBA would
the
consider
variance.
for granting
Okay.
it.
Got it.
I guess it could be potentially if the other stores are already exceeding the minimum required, and because they would share them, potentially that would eliminate the need for it, but we'd have to see if that exists first.
I guess my question is, the store was originally approved with the 611 parking spaces. I assume that was because of a change in code over the years since the original development.
More than likely.
Well, we're not sure that that's the reason, but we believe that's what I believe to be the reason, but I wasn't sure myself.
That would make sense, but haven't done the review to see.
Sure. Dylan, do you have any questions or comments for our applicant?
I don't have the site plan in front of me, but I just remember some of the parking area they wanted to take up was for a U-Haul. Is that still a part of the application?
I believe so.
And other equipment.
U-Haul and other equipment. So the reduction from 611 to 577, is that just to address the violations, or does that include?
That includes
Okay,
what they're,
storage.
Okay.
all the storage areas, as well as they're losing some parking to meet the minimum handicap parking stall requirement.
I have no further questions, thank you.
Pat?
No, just an observation. A lot of those parking spaces are taken up by people that are squatting, with home RVs and stuff like that. But I don't, here nor there. Back to the approval. observation.
Okay, so yes, I think we'd like to have Noreen also refer this over to the county. I do agree that a referral to the ZBA for the variance could take place at this point. So I'd like to make a motion that we approve a referral over to the ZBA, if I may have a second.
Second?
Aye?
Aye.
Aye.
It also makes sense to me, expediency, that we, if this is a unlisted action, and that we go with uncoordinated review, that way the ZBA can get started on this without us finishing our secret review.
Need a motion on that?
Would you like to make that motion?
I'd like to make that motion.
May I have a second?
Second?
Thank you.
Jeff Manson,
Aye?
Pat Shea,
Aye.
Dylan Penn.
Aye.
Okay. Any questions for us about where we're at and what we kind of need to do to move forward at this point?
I don't believe so. I just wanted to make a point about the parking study that was included, and I guess this would be more so for the ZBA at this point, but we had a parking study completed that proves that there's never more than 129 parked cars in the parking lot, and we'd be asking for 577 parking spaces. And we also looked through aerial data from 2001 to 2020 to 2024 that shows the same data, so
It'll
I don't-
definitely be something to submit and to make that
Okay.
case to the ZBA. This board just doesn't have the authority
Okay.
to waive that to that extent.
Okay, understood. Then just a question in regards to those ADA spaces. Understand the need for it to meet all ADA requirements, but we have notes on here right now that indicate that it needs to all be verified in the field by the contractor. That's all at 2%. That being said, we don't have a survey of that specific area right now. Is that something that's able to be waived as long as we have it verified in the fields?
So I could talk to the building inspector about that, but typically, if you don't meet the grades, it could extend the section of pavement to be replaced, which wouldn't match the site plan. That would be my only concern. If the board want a note on the plans to potentially have that as a verification at time of building permit, that could be something you could consider. But in my opinion, that's the point. Site plan review. Scope of all the improvements.
I tend to agree with that. I think if there's going to be some regrading, we need to get that taken care of prior to our approval. All right, so we will ask that that be done as part of future submissions.
Okay, understood.
Anything else we can do for?
That is it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Application.
Doran's. I'm just helping for one night.
Not in the work.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. It appears we don't have a representative here for our next applicant, Walmart, at this point, so we'll obviously see them at a future date. I know we have one thing of minutes to go through. Other than that, any other issues for tonight?
Do we have any comment from our tree?
So I was working with Bonnie to get her comment on the tree law. That way I could write up a report for this board to consider and write up your suggested revisions, but we weren't able to get that all accomplished before tonight's meeting, so that'll be on Tuesday's agenda.
Okay.
Dennis, were you here for tree law? And I'm sorry, but I was trying to work with Bonnie, we were trying to get something together for the board to consider this evening, but it just didn't happen, so we'll have that for Tuesday.
Understood. Yes, because it's on the agenda for the board meeting on Monday, but that's a public hearing. Will your comments be available by Monday evening?
It'll be at the meeting on,
The board meeting's Tuesday? No. The next town planning board. It's on the agenda for a public hearing. I think that meeting is on.
Monday. Yeah, they won't have them until.
They won't have it. That's all. Just
Sorry.
wanted to know. Yeah. And you've got my comments, and Brian, Brian's got those.
Yes, I know you had
So-
submitted
Yes.
a few,
So
and
no
you had
que-
sent
no-
those to the town board.
Huh?
You had sent those to the town board.
Yeah. Okay, so no questions for me. That's good. Just wanted to be here just to make sure. Can I change the subject briefly? I did
Sure.
submit an email to you about Mary Crest.
Mary Crest?
Yes.
I was asked to, we were contacted by Kate Schmidt from the Orange County as to does the town have any opinion on that? And I believe from the last meeting, you were going to consider any potential impacts on that cell farm that's proposed.
Yes, so I
solar
know that
farm
the board did want to, you reviewed that very briefly. So the board definitely, should, and I don't know whether it's something you want to add till Tuesday, if everyone has the chance to, Tuesday's agenda just keeps getting bigger here, but if the board wants to review and then have a discussion on that on Tuesday, you certainly can.
We don't have decision-making authority, obviously, on Mary
I understand
Crest.
that.
No, but any
but it-
comments?
Yes, it's just
Right,
an
but-
advisory situation.
Exactly.
And so I was asked to look into it as well, or to talk to you about it. As you say, it's definitely not in the town, but obviously there may be impacts on wetlands, view shed, and all that sort of thing. Okay.
I mean, I don't have an issue if we discuss that on Tuesday, but I'm going to defer to Bonnie for a final decision.
Recused on?
Bonnie's recused on that, yes.
On Blooming.
All right.
It could either be Tuesday or at even, next, I don't think they're at the stage where we could try to find out where they are in the process. That way you don't miss your opportunity to comment.
Right. I think we just want to not miss that opportunity. And we'll try and consider that before Tuesday if we can get to that on Tuesday, but we have already a significant agenda and we really have to act on the tree plan.
I think you're going to have a few months on that. They've not scheduled the public hearing, and they're working through some zoning issues to make the plan to a point where they can schedule the public hearing, so.
Yeah, I think you've got some time on that. As I say, from my brief observations, it would appear that it might affect some wetlands, which are half in and half out of Monroe. But, okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Dennis. Ashley or Sean, do you have anything else that you need to cover tonight?
Good night.
Good night. Okay, then we will let you go home, and we'll take care of our minutes. I think we can. Good night. These are the minutes from June 3rd. Yeah, let me just go back to it. I thought it was the three of us, no?
Robert,
Give the people.
Oh, okay.
Robert and not Pat.
Right. Okay.
I move we adjourn.
Hang on one second. Have these been sent out? I know I got these a couple of days ago. Were they sent out to the whole board to review?
Did you get them?
Okay. That was my only question about that. So we can maybe take that up. Well, that's going to be a tougher one too if Bob's going to be out for a while.
Yeah, that's true. Well, he's gonna get back to me next week. He basically has to have someone be with her if he comes to the meeting.
How do we stand overall as we're heading quickly towards the end of the year with training? Are we in?
You are.
I know where I'm at.
Not sure about Mr. Penn. You have your 4 hours in?
I think I did one at the beginning of the year.
Well, that's what happens. Everybody gets excited. They do their first one, and then
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
ignore
Yeah,
the rest
so-
of my emails.
So
I
just be
send.
mindful of that the end of the year comes fast, and as we get closer to the holidays, they start to dry up because everybody starts
Sent
to
one,
move
but Pat reminded me it's for Tuesday's
Right,
meeting.
it's Tuesday night's
so
meeting.
I didn't even look at the date and time, and then when he sent it back, I'm like, better go back and read it, because I send it to both boards. So I don't always pay attention to when it is, so at least maybe somebody would go. But
I
I'm very
registered-
proud that you looked
I
at it.
registered it for it, and then the light came on.
Well, our meeting will be too busy to have it on Zoom while we're here.
Right. If either of you are available, New York State Planning Federation does a Learn at Lunch series. They had one yesterday, which I registered for and then couldn't make, but that generally runs from 12 to 1, so depending around your schedules, and I can make sure when I get those. Do you get the announcements on
I don't
those?
get to learn and lunch ones.
All right, so I'll make sure that I get them over to Noreen. It's just another opportunity if you can
I
carve out
agree.
an hour in your day.
That's an on-site.
No, it's a Zoom, yeah, topics of interest, a lot of stuff covering Hudson Valley things, so that's particularly interesting. The one yesterday was on the use of GIS, which I don't know a lot about, so I registered, but then, work happened. All right, so with that, if no one has anything else, may I have a motion to adjourn?
I already made it.
Would you remake it?
Motion to adjourn?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Second. He made the motion, I need a second.
I'll second.
There you go. And we're all in favor.
All in favor.
Good catch.